Or teach us. Because I got strong. Very sweet. Yeah, it's issues. Last night.
Recording in progress.
Order the regular meeting of the Rio Dell City Council. Roll call, please.
Mayor Barnes?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Carter?
Here.
Councilmember Orr?
Here.
Councilmember Wilson?
Here.
Councilmember Woodall?
Here. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Information? Yeah. Have ceremonial matters, proclamations for Older Americans Month, for Older American Month. Maggie Kraft, would you come forward to accept this, please? Welcome, thank you for being here. Proclamation in honor of Older Americans Month, May 2023. Whereas the city of Rio Dell includes a growing number of older Americans who contribute their time, wisdom, and experience to our community. Whereas communities benefit when people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds have the opportunity to participate and live independently. And whereas the city of Rio Dell recognizes the need to create a community that offers the services and supports older Americans may need to make choices about how they age. And whereas the city of Rio Dell can work to build an even better community for our older residents by not limiting our thinking about aging, exploring and combating stereotypes, emphasizing the many positive aspects of aging, inspiring older adults to push past traditional boundaries, and embracing our community's diversity. Now, therefore, the City Council and the City of Rio Dell hereby proclaims May 2023 as Older Americans Month, urging every resident to celebrate our older citizens, hope to create an inclusive society, and accept the challenges of flexible thinking around aging. And I would welcome you to this department. Thank you, Maggie, for being here, and thank you for everything you've done for us through this earthquake before, during, and after. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Absolutely. This is Maggie Kraft.
Thank you, Mayor Barnes. I especially wanted to come here at the start of Older Americans Month to recognize this community for all you are doing for the older adults who live here. It's a large part of your population, and I just appreciate everything you have done. I was one of those out-of-towners who showed up here on December 20th and went over to the fire department and said to the chief, how can I help? Where are the older adults that need help? And he sent me off on my way, and it became quite an odyssey, frankly. And I'm still working with some of these folks to try to get justice for them in terms of what happened around their living situation. And all I can say is every step of the way, everybody I met in this community, you pulled together, you worked together. People, you were out delivering meals, everybody was out there, and it's just so important to have communities take care of their members, because as you saw with the earthquake, and we'll see again with the next disaster, they're not coming to help us. They're not coming to save us. It's got to be done locally. This guy too, my God, he was amazing. So I came here on the 20th. I made some new friends. I learned a lot. I met some great people, and I want to tell you that the Area 1 Agency on Aging wants to continue to provide support here in this community when it's needed and in a way that it's requested and needed. So please stay in touch with us. We work with the Community Resource Center, but anything we can do to help support the older adults in this community and their caregivers, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you. Public presentations. This is the time for persons who wish to address the council on any matter on this agenda over which the council has jurisdiction. As such, a dialogue with the council or staff is not allowed under the Ralph M. Brown Act. Items requiring council actions not listed on this agenda may be placed on the next regular agenda for consideration if the council directs, unless a finding is made by at least 2/3 of the council that the item came up after the agenda was posted and is of an urgency nature requiring immediate action. Please limit comments to 3 minutes. Anyone? I'm not Sharon.
Hi, Sharon Wolf, 3 Painter Street from Rio Dell. I really wanted to build on what Megan Pratt said from the Area 1 Agency on Aging. They do fantastic work, they really do. And we are going to be, as a society, we are going to be asking a lot more of them as the aging population is coming on, and we are going to be taxing our resources to a great deal. Right now, the population in the United States, only 22.1% of them are youths. That's our caregivers, that's our workforce, that's everything for all of us. So anything we can do, great. And they just do great work, and we're thrilled with them. So I want to take the opportunity to mention a bill, SB 280 by Senator Layer. It would not be one that the city would take a position on. It would be one that any individual here could take a position on. And so I just wanted to raise it up to you. It would require a conservator to create and publish and send to family members a care plan for the older adult. Surprisingly, that's not required right now. Through my own experiences with conservatorship, I will simply say that it's horrifying. It is truly horrifying. So this is the bill for every person who has a parent. This is the bill you don't know you need, because this requires that care plan to be sent to the first level relatives of the conservatee. That's the adult children. Adult children don't have many rights in the law. So that's a big deal that it requires it to be sent there. So again, this is a bill for everybody who has a parent or anyone you care about that you don't know that you need this bill until you need it. So I'd ask everyone to support this and encourage others to support this for Older Americans Month. Thank you.
Sharon,
yes.
the number.
It is SB 280 by Senator Laird, and it is moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. That's very, very important. I do actually have present. Oh, absolutely.
I don't know, is it,
Can you come? Thank you.
is it appropriate at this time to speak about the fee waivers for Reconstruction for the.
No, that's actually on the agenda, so that item
I
will.
wasn't aware.
Yeah, it is on the agenda. Thank you. So we will close the public presentations and move on to the consent calendar. Is there anyone on the council who would like to remove an item?
No.
Anyone, staff, public? Okay, then, no hands raised, no emails? Then I will ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion carries 5-0. Staff reports and communications. City manager, page, page 52, page 52 in our packet.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. Coming up Saturday, May 13th is a big day here in Rio Dell. We'll have the annual cleanup day at the school, as we do every Saturday before Mother's Day. In addition to which, there is a postal food drive, postal worker food drive on Saturday, May 13th, where folks can leave canned goods in front of their mailbox, and they'll be collected by postal workers on Saturday. And then there's also a Mother's Day pancake breakfast the following day on the 14th. So
At the fire hall?
at the fire hall. So we have a big weekend that weekend, and but with that, we do have reports from city clerk, finance, police department, public works, and if the council has any questions, we're happy to try to answer them.
Thank you. So does anyone?
Just a question here. Has everything getting out and informing people of the cleanup day?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Now for me, for Tim? Okay, and I just have a question to the police chief about the, just if you could speak to the loose dog issue that's been kind of forefront. You just, and let people know that there's a number and all that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and City Council. We have seen an increase in a number of loose dogs that are around the town, especially from last year. Those numbers have doubled. But we wanted to encourage the public to call us when you see loose dogs running around. A lot of times we see these ads on social media, but those calls don't come to the police department. And so one of the things we want to encourage is that you don't know if that animal is if it's going to attack you or if it's aggressive. And the other part of it is that we want to make sure that dog doesn't get hit by a car and injure the dog and or somebody else. So if you guys can call the police department, we can take, if we can catch it, we'll keep it for a reasonable amount of time. Our department's not built for a shelter of the dog for long periods of time. A lot of our animal calls are repeat offenders. And so we try to work with those owners to make sure that doesn't happen again. Most of our animals are transported to Miranda's if we can't get a hold of the owner or repeat offenders. There are fees associated with those. On most occasions, we waive the first time fee for anybody who loses the first time that their animals get out. So the number to call, if you do see an animal running around, is 707-764-5642.
Would you repeat that, please?
707-764-5642.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And, just for anyone out here and anyone who could be watching this and listening, we really do take this seriously. The city as a whole understands how dangerous it can be for loose dogs, for both humans and dogs and pets. Cats or small dogs that are, they're just vulnerable because of their size. So we have had calls, we have had people express their concern, express their fears, and we just as a council and as a city want everyone to know that we do hear it and we do take it seriously. And please call that number if you see any dogs loose running around.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
It's required that an audit be performed to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. The auditing firm JJA CPA Inc. will present to the council the fiscal year 21-22 audited financial statements and accompanying information.
All right, thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Thank you for being here. Appreciate your time.
Great, great. My name is Brett Jones. I was the engagement manager on the audit this year. I thought I'd briefly just go over the financial statements themselves and result of the audit. So the first thing I would like to point out is our opinion letter. It's found on page 1 directly after the introductory section. We issued an unmodified opinion, and in the second paragraph, it states, in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the city. So that's great news. That's what you want to hear. It means that's the highest opinion we can give. So that's all really good. Following our audit opinion is the management's discussion and analysis section of the financial statements. The purpose of the MD&A is to provide additional analysis of the government's financial activities. This section is prepared by management of the city. It's not prepared by us. And it's a great section to kind of get a summary of the overall financial activities of the city for the year. Following the MD&A are the financial statements themselves, starting with the government-wide financial statements, which consist of the statement of net position on page 21 and the statement of activities on page 22. These statements are prepared under the economic resources measurement focus, which means they're prepared under a full accrual basis of accounting, which means that's where you'll find items like long-term capital assets and long-term liabilities would be in this section. Following the government-wide financial statements are the fund financial statements. This is going to be the same information prepared under a different method of accounting. These statements are presented under a current resources measurement focus, which means they're prepared on modified accrual. So more similar to a cash basis with a shorter accrual period, typically 60 days. So again, the fund financial statements start on page 26 with the balance sheet and continue on page 29 with a statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So those are considered the basic financial statements to which our audit opinion applies. Following those statements are the notes. These provide additional disclosures about the balances in the financial statements. They also include a summary of the city's significant accounting policies. Following the notes is an additional section called the combining and individual fund statements and schedules. The purpose of these schedules, they consist of a balance sheet and statement of changes for the non-major special revenue funds. These funds are combined and presented alongside the major funds. So all the funds that are smaller with smaller account balances are included in these combining schedules. And the last section I want to point out in the report is on the very last page. That's going to be our report on internal control or financial reporting and on compliance and other matters. So the purpose of this report is to disclose any deficiencies in internal controls or any compliance issues we may have had with laws or regulations or contract agreements. So again, there's nothing to report there, which was really great. So it's a rather short report. Lastly, in addition to the financial statements, we also issued our communications with those charged with governance. This used to be called the management letter. This is a letter that we issued directly to the city council and provides additional information regarding the audit. It'll include a summary of management's responsibilities, our responsibilities. If there are any uncorrected misstatements that we need to notify the council, they would be in here. And if there are any audit findings that we need to notify the council, they would be in here. And we're pleased to report that we had no findings, no internal control deficiencies or material weaknesses that we felt we needed to disclose to the council. So overall, the audit went very well. Travis and his team were able to get us all the information we need to do our work. So I just want to thank him and his staff. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the audit process or about the financial statements themselves.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward?
No question.
Councilmember Wilson?
I'm good on this. It's a very good, detailed report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
No questions. I'm glad to hear we got an A.
Councilmember Waddell?
No, just like to thank Travis and his staff for doing a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And does anyone from the public have a question? Are there any hands raised? Any emails? Then I would like to thank you. I thank you for doing the audit. Thank you for being here. And we appreciate your time you spent with the city.
Thank you.
We'll move on to discussion and possible direction of waiver of building permit fees for the quake damage structures. Page 161 in our packet, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. As you will recall, on our previous meeting of April 18th, there was a public comment related to waiver of building permit fees for earthquake-related repairs to structures. At the request of the mayor, the item has been agendized tonight for council consideration and then for the council to provide direction on this particular matter. In addition to the material in your packet is a small printout here. It's also up on the front table that lists out basically the building budget annually, and then building permit fees, and then also has a total of at the bottom $28,616 in total earthquake-related permit fees collected thus far since the December 20th initial event. As you can see on the sheet, typically the building department is subsidized by the general fund on an annual basis, meaning that typically, I'm just using the 4-year average, about $38,000 annually goes to subsidize the building permits in the city. So for folks not aware, building regulations and rules are set by the state of California. So Rio Dell does not have any additional building requirements or code that is not required by the state. So there are other jurisdictions, for example, Arcata, that has certain energy efficiency codes that are in excess and above and beyond the state requirements. So Rio Dell does not have any of that. And as an unfunded mandate of the state, the only way for the city to who costs is associated with the building permit fees. And again, the current fees don't cover the general service cost of the service in the city of Rio Dell, mostly because of the small size and low level of annual, building permits pulled. So that being said, I think it's really important, the context here for earthquake-related victims or residents, to understand that, first of all, FEMA this was not a federally declared disaster. And so what that means is there's no individual or household assistance coming from the federal government. Because we didn't meet certain thresholds in California, it's roughly $65 million worth of damage to reach that threshold. We did not reach it. It is not an equitable situation. It is not fair to any resident of this community, affected or not. And it's also just, it's a difficult position for the council to be in, because if there's no real new money coming in, the only option in terms of waiving fees is to pull from already pre-existing resources from other areas and try to match that. So it's a difficult prospect, because in essence, you're taking from one functional area in order to pay and cover the costs associated with the fees with the building inspections. That being said, we can expect to see probably at least a fourfold increase in the amount of building permit activity as a result of the earthquakes. That will include additional inspections, additional plan checks, additional work associated with fee waivers. So some of the potential options for the council, if the council were to move forward with fee waivers, would be, again, to reappropriate existing city money. So there's the general fund, which is composed of tax dollars, and roughly 65% of those general fund dollars go to fund the police department. The general fund has also been the major contributor towards the road projects over the past 4 or 5 years. They've actually have been subsidized through non-road tax dollars in order to get those projects completed. The general fund itself is under pressure as we are moving into a more recessionary environment. And it looks like just on sales tax alone, revenue to the city, general fund is going to be decreasing by approximately $100,000 a year, while costs are continuing to escalate in terms of the software communications requirements for the police department, the staffing costs associated with the police department, and other just general cost escalators that generally only ever go up. So these are, again, difficult position that the council's put in, because there's really no win-win in any of this, because in order to solve one problem, it creates another. So this is a kind of a classic whack-a-mole problem that local government faces tremendously. And again, the federal government is not here. The city council is here. The staff is here. We do have donations from Humboldt Area Foundation of about $1.2 million. The county has also put forward funds. None of those are controlled by the city. And those are really the funds that we're using, that the community is using to make up for the fact that the federal government is not here. And so there is no individual or household assistance, which means that there is no new money coming in to assist with these types of expenses. So again, some of your options are the general fund, ARPA, which has already been earmarked by the council for expenditures on infrastructure related activities. And then another example could be to request the Humboldt Area Foundation to pay to step in and pay for the permit to pay all and waive all permit fees through that. My guess is that, again, is another example of kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, in the sense that those limited $1.2 million come in. They're prioritized for those who have no other resources available to them. And so to take that available money and put it towards just a blanket waiver of all earthquake-related fees dilutes that mission of using the available resources towards those in most need. Essentially, we're not gaining any ground in that respect. At this point in time, staff is not recommending waiving earthquake-related building permit fees unless an outside source of funding can be identified, either through the state or other additional philanthropic donations at this particular point in time. We realize that there are problems with the disaster case management system, and that we have a lot of need and very limited resources to hire disaster case managers. The county's taken the lead on that in terms of getting those resources into place. Again, I want to encourage people to call 707-382-5890 disaster case management line. And if you can, leave a message. They will pick it up. But I believe they've been basically essentially overwhelmed at this point with the number of requests coming in. And so that is something we will be discussing tomorrow with Cal OES and County in terms of what else we can do to open up those lines. So with that, I don't anticipate, there wouldn't, if the council wishes to move forward with fee waivers, my recommendation would be that the council give us direction to return to the council with some options of how that could happen, because this is actually, pretty complicated. And there's different ins and outs and certain statutory required fees that have to be paid. But there are a number of different options to potentially look at. So with that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions that the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. I would like to start by thanking everybody who came to this meeting. We rarely see a full city council chambers, and the fact that you are here means that you care about your community. And I think that's a really good place to start. We also care about the community, and I really, really want to put that out there first and foremost. In the weeks after that earthquake, every single city representative in this room, including most of the council here, was boots on the ground at like 4 a.m, doing our very best. We do absolutely care about this community. We're certainly not here for the riches and the fame, but because you're here, that says to me that you care more about this community than you do about yourselves individually. And that is a lovely, beautiful thing. And I want to start by honoring that. So thank each and every one of you for being here. We were all in that earthquake too. I want that established also. We were not immune. Simply sitting on this side of the room does not mean that we didn't have damages to our own homes, that we don't have financial hardship, deaths in the family, medical problems, etc., etc. We are on the same team, and we are in the same proverbial boat when it comes to earthquake problems. And it's very important to me that you all take that in. I am going to vote no to waiving the fees. And I'm just going to say that. And I'm sorry. I don't like to do that at all. It hurts me to say that. It's not fun. When I heard you speak last week, what I saw and what I heard is pain and loss and fear that is now running rampant in this community. And that breaks my heart. We have it too, partly because we were in the earthquake and we also suffered. But we also have it because the members of our community are suffering. And that is hard on us. And that's something that I take home and dwell on for the last however many months. So it's not fun for me to sit here and say no to you. I don't like it at all. And this will haunt me after I leave this meeting tonight. As the city manager said, the money has to come from somewhere. The permits still have to get done. We still need to pay for them somehow. If we vote to waive the fees, if I vote to waive the fees, then I'm essentially voting to pull money away from other services that benefit this town, the entire town, that we cannot do without. And I don't like that either, but it's the situation that we're in. And my responsibility as an elected official is to make decisions based not on what helps me, because it would help me personally to not have to pay permit fees. It would. That would be awesome. But I have to make my decisions based on the long-term sustainability of the city as a whole. And what that means is infrastructure. What that means is police. What that means is safety. What that means is people who are red tagged, completely displaced. I can't take in good conscience money from them. I can't, and still sleep at night. I believe that voting to waive these fees would be at best misguided and at worst completely unethical based on the report that we've heard and the things that I've said. But I do care very, very much about each and every one of you who is here tonight. I see you and the rest of this town as a valuable member of a very important team. And you're gonna have your chance to speak. And you can say whatever you want to me. You can insult my face. You can curse my father's grave, whatever it is. And it will not change the fact that I see you as an important member of a valuable team. And as people who care about your community and who put the needs of the community and the city at large above the needs of yourself. And if you hear my voice going wonky, it is because I'm trying not to cry, because that is not professional. I guarantee you, when this is all said and done, and I walk out to that car, I will be crying because I don't like to do this. And I hope that you know that this is not fun and I don't enjoy it, but it is what it is. And we didn't get FEMA and we don't have a whole lot of guarantees about anything right now. And I cannot in good conscience vote to waive these fees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilmember Wilson.
Thank you. Mr. Kellogg obviously isn't here tonight, but I had a couple of questions that I wanted to ask from him. I see that in the list where it talks about, I think my first question was, are all of the yellow and red tags, do they all require a permit to have those alleviated or dealt with? I'm addressing the city, I think the city clerk, but I don't.
The biggest majority of the red and yellow tags, well, all the red tags and the majority of the yellow tags do require permits.
But
Most of the work.
I would assume that most of them, depending what they are, but I've also heard some stories that people dealt with, were able to fix it themselves without really being like a water leak or something, they fixed the thing. I can't remember the exact one that I heard.
Right.
But they didn't require, well, like something fell down and I had to put a structural, I had to deal with codes that had to be inspected.
There were some cases where people acted based on the emergency, the immediate nature of the situation. They had to do it. They didn't have time to, either the weekend or night or whatever, they couldn't come to City Hall and apply for a permit. Some permits were actually issued after the fact, after the jobs were done, and Kevin did go out and inspect once they were done, and the permits were actually, issued after the work, because people either they couldn't do it or they weren't aware that they needed a permit. So, some of those things have happened, and small things like maybe a broken water line or something where people just fixed it and they didn't realize they really needed a permit. Minor things like that, we didn't go after people for those minor things. I mean, you had to do what you had to do. We understood the emergency in the situation.
Because what I'm trying to get down to understand, the way that, and I'll probably get corrected here, but my understanding in the past is how things get billed and accounted for in the expense section, particularly under the general fund area, is because it talked about here about there are additional costs associated, and that's why I was hoping Mr. Caldwell would be here. What are the additional costs that result? Citizen X comes in and applies for a permit, and it costs whatever it costs. And then what additional cost to the city is incurred by that permit fee?
Well, that would depend on the type of permit, the type of construction. Anything that requires a drawing or a set of plans gets sent out. We don't do plan checks in-house. So all those plan checks are sent out to an independent company, and we have to pay basically that plan check fee that's on the permit is just a pass-through charge. We give that to the company that does the plan checks. So there's that. Sometimes Kevin has to consult with engineers or other building departments, and to make sure we're doing the right thing. So those types of extra expenses. And like the city manager mentioned, a lot of the fees on the permit are passed through to the state. Things that were required, like the seismic fee and the SB 1473. There's other state mandated costs that we have to charge. We can't waive those. We do quarterly, monthly reports, and we have to send those fees to the state.
Well, that's why I'm asking, so that I understand what is being, because if in the event, and I'm not trying to go back and do a history lesson, but you were obviously here, and I think Councilman Woodall was on the council at the time. When we used to not have a building department, and so back under a different city manager, we went to the point of we created a building department, and what we were trying to eliminate was the cost of we have an outside inspector, plus all of the other stuff that you're talking about. But we have an outside inspector, so we wanted to eliminate that person's inspection fee and pay and write a check to an outside individual. What happened after we voted to approve that, to save that money, when we created the department immediately went into the negative because there was no money to pay Mr. Caldwell. Because he was already being paid because he was already on staff, and the money would, I believe, have come still out of the general fund. So he was being funded. Well, now he was to be funded by his building department, and I think part of your wage was charged to the
There's a
building.
percentage. Yeah.
So that money was already being paid to some. Was being paid from somewhere, which inevitably was the general fund, and just from a different fund. And so what I didn't want to have it turn into that, what I would call it, you don't like the term, but it is like a wooden nickel type of thing, is that we're creating different fund numbers for funds that it doesn't really change the face of what it did. We're eliminating an outside person would eliminate that expense. And so what I wanted to understand, what is it actually costing us? I see the number for permit fees here. They seem pretty consistent across the last 3 years, not the one that was 35, but the other 3. And but what was the cost from January 1st to essentially now, when the earthquake happened? Because a big portion of probably our permits, and some of these permits that are there aren't earthquake related. If they're not earthquake related, then that's not a consideration. I'm trying to understand what the total cost is really costing the city.
So Kevin had me go through and look at the permit logs since the earthquake and identify how many of those permits were actually earthquake related.
Yes.
And it came out to about 89% were earthquake related.
Okay.
We have some solar permits and re-roofs and things like that, but the biggest majority, about 88% were earthquake related. And we took in for the first quarter, say 4 months, we took in the amount we take in all year as far as the number of permits. And the amount.
Are we sending stuff out to these other agencies?
Just
these other people, plan checkers?
Yes, yes. Yes, we send all plan checks out. Except Kevin does do like solar ones because they're pretty cut and dry.
Right.
Yeah, they're pretty simple, but anything that's new, any kind of new construction, all goes out for outside review.
Well, again,
It doesn't cost us any additional money. The permit, the plan check fee permit pays for it.
but that's part of the fee.
Yes, yes.
I mean, that's part of the permit fee.
Mhm, yes.
And so and listening to what, the previous council member said here was that it makes a good argument to the point of not taking away from other citizens of the community in an area where we're restricted with money. What I would like to understand at the end of this before I make a big jump, and I don't know if we have to make an actual total decision on a thing or make a recommendation to invest further, which is what I would probably do, is ask for more information to know what it's actually costing the city above and beyond normal. I mean, the earthquake, we get a fee, and if the contractor comes in, the contractor's coming in and fixing the problem. And then the fee that we charge, if it's just Mr. Caldwell's time to go out and inspect it, he's already getting paid. But if it's going out to a plan checker, who we have to pay additionally, then that's something that comes against our city money that wouldn't have been there. And that seemingly is taken away from other people that are going through the same problems as we had.
Yeah, those plan checks would still need to be sent out no matter what.
So that's what I would, if I had my choice, that's what I would ask, that we get an understanding of those numbers.
So, yeah, if I could just add to that, so like I said earlier, what we're, projecting out is a pretty dramatic increase in just the building inspection portion of what Mr. Caldwell does, but that isn't the only thing that he does. So he's also the planning director for the city. He also is instrumental in the cannabis program for the city, and a lot of other programs. So this is part of the budget discussion, is to figure out the staffing situation moving forward, knowing that we have, an additional workload that is going to be detracting. Remember, Mr. Caldwell is also not a 40-hour-a-week employee. So this is part of the balance that we have to take here, because these other things, whether it's the planning or cannabis, have to be taken care of. One way or the other. One of the other comments that I made in a previous council meeting a couple of months ago is that I have been in discussions with the county planning and building to see if we can substitute building inspections using county building inspectors, knowing that down the road we're going to be getting a lot of inspections and increasing Mr. Caldwell's time to go do those. We're very responsive right now. It's basically, you can almost do that the same day. But as the weather clears up, with the exception of tonight, I think we're going to start to see a whole lot more building permits come in, a lot more inspections that need to get done. So the costs are going up, and it's not, so, I mean, we're still going to probably end up with the subsidy of the building fund when all is said and said and done. So I want to make sure that's clear, and hopefully we can rely on some of the county building inspectors to do that. But I can't guarantee that they're gonna, the county's gonna just chip in and do that for free. So when they've already put forward, $1 million towards the recovery effort, which is more than any other outside upper level government has done so far. So, and they're also facing, I think, their own financial challenges as well.
I appreciate your input. I'm leaning to the idea of, I'm going to address you, but probably addressing you. I'm wanting to do something for the citizens that have incurred these expenses. That doesn't mean is necessarily 100% because of the things that, as you said, we have certain obligations that actually add additional costs to the city. But in the area that it's not doing it, whether it's a percent of that fee that's charged for the building fee, Mr. Caldwell still gets paid, whether he's doing pot or whether he's doing building inspections. He's getting paid. When he's getting paid for the cannabis ones, he's getting paid out of general fund or somebody, I would assume. And so, if there's a way for staff to define the two and make an effort to say, let's help them out in some way, because if there's an expense incurred to the city, then somebody has to cover that. And rightfully, the person that is incurring that permit should cover the inspection fees or the plan checks from whatever the engineering is. But if it's simply a clerical administrative person who's already on staff, then I believe the city I would like to see the city cover that in this circumstance. This isn't something that happens every day. And so, again, I'm asking for more information to define what we're actually causing the city to come across. And that would give us, I mean, I don't know if this answer has to be made tonight, what the actual decision is, but I would like to put something forth that staff would find this information and come back on a percentage basis, or something that we can understand and at least give some kind of relief to the impacted residents. Because it ultimately does have, and which has already been, I think Mr. Caldwell shared that I don't know if he shared that in the one meeting. I think he did, but he said what will happen is people may not come and get the permits that they need to come and get. And because they don't, if it's an exorbitant amount of money. Some of the permits may not be, again, looking at the list of permits that were requested for this last month, I don't know that a 100 amp service panel would be earthquake related unless it destroyed the guy's service panel. It would probably red tag. But the things that are being impacted, you want your citizens to come down and contact the city and do it right. If they don't, it gets done wrong, and then that's the next guy gets stuck with the wrong piece of. That's the whole purpose of the building here, is to make sure that the codes are protected. And it's also why when we have a 7-point earthquake compared to a 5-point earthquake in Nicaragua, they killed 5,000 people and we don't, because we have building codes that protect us. And so again, what I'm requesting from my position is that we get a better understanding of what it's actually costing the city before we come out and make a decision. If the rest of the council has a feeling that Amanda has, then it'll be a meeting point. But that's basically all I have to say at this point.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward?
I don't have anything as long as that, but not that it wasn't well. But I have a hard time believing that people are going to stay around in a city where they're getting essentially fined. I know it's a building permit and it has its associated costs that go with it, but to be charged for, and I looked at some of those from the last council meeting, and there were several building permits issued for a single chimney that fell, which seemed insane to me. And I'm not claiming to know anything about building codes or anything, but there has to be a way to keep people in the city. And after 2 years of earthquakes, to the point where they almost seem scheduled on a certain date, even I'm thinking about leaving. If I can't afford to stay in my house, which I'll say it, my house is yellow tag right now and needs permits and I can't afford them. I will fix it myself and do the best I can, but I can't afford a city building permit. 6 kids and a wife that live with me, and I'm a school teacher. There's no way I can afford that. and that's my fear, is that more and more people was say, enough with it. I'm gonna fix it myself and do the best I can. And if somebody comes around and inspects me and says you're out of compliance, put a lien on my house. But at least I'm living someplace that is the best I can. And we talk a lot about the renter properties that are falling down around here. It's gonna end up to be the entire city of Rio Dell if we don't figure out a way to help people work through this. And then I'm not gonna feel bad about going to Fortuna and finding a place to live. If I can't find a way to survive here, and yeah, I understand it costs out of the general fund in other places, but unless somebody's feet are held to the fire, we're not gonna look for a way to pay for it. We're just gonna keep charging the citizens. We're gonna keep throwing more and more on their back, and what's happening to downtown is gonna start happening street by street, all the way to the freeway and beyond. So, if we can't help them, then who? Because this number's not working. We heard from people last week that have called and called and called, sat on hold, getting nothing. Yeah, a lot of people in this community look great on paper, but that doesn't mean that the inflation and everything else isn't kicking their butt. And I, for one, know that it is, and it is hard to get by, and then to find out that your building permit fees are lining the pockets of people that aren't even in the city. And I understand state fees and I understand county fees, but the things that should be able to be done locally and aren't, or the things that should be able to be done or look for another source of funding and aren't, simply because we can say, no, I'm not going to vote for this. You're going to have to pay for your permit fees. It's ridiculous. And I mean, I'm probably in the minority, but I would vote for the waiver. Obviously, there needs to be some more information, because nowhere on here does it say where the fees go. And if there are mandatory fees per permit, or depending upon the project, then yes, obviously it has to go somewhere. But if we're taking the permit fee and splitting it among other city agencies that are, I mean, I guess I hate to say profiting from emergency, but a lot of people come to the house when it first happened to everyone's houses and say, I hate to profit from something this serious, but that's what they're doing, is they're profiting from it. And everyone has to make a living, but there are ways to work around something like this. Other cities all over California have done it. Smaller cities than Rio Dell have done it, and found a way to make it work and keep their city whole and solvent and running efficiently. So, I mean, we talk about fixing roads and everything, but what good does it do to fix the road that goes in front of a house somebody can live in because they can't fund the permit to fix the house? That's it for me.
Thank you.
Of course, we'd all have to be able to do it. Some of my concerns are, a lot of the things that will be need to fix in the city, come under the California Disaster Act, and it guarantees 75%. Well, that still leaves 25%. And at first, some of these projects are going to have to be completely, and if, correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle or Travis, completely built out before we find out if we collect the 25%. And so we don't know that we'll be able to collect the 25% from a lot of these, and that can add up to roughly, Kyle, I think it was $6 million in extra fees for the city. And those fees will have to come out of, we will have to transfer between the different, general funds, the other funds. We'll have to make an effort to do that. And right now, the state of California right now is in a deficit position. So the California would be picking up the other 25%. We have like 3 roads that are covered by the county. I don't know if they need, what kind of fixing they need, but the county will take care of 90%, but we'll still have to pick up 10%. Is that?
Well, the county roads is $10 million on deficit, so that can give you an idea.
Yeah. So,
but it's right that you guys aren't responsible for it.
Yeah, but it said we still have to pick up 10. So,
Yeah.
we have a slip out up on Monument that we're gonna do it with the county, and our part will probably be $100,000. And there's just a lot of ifs in our budget area that's coming up, that, it's hard to make a decision like this. You know, let's see, I can't think of. This paper. Yeah, like, the city manager said that, we're 15 to 20% below target growth with regards to the state tax revenues. So that's going down. And as also other people mentioned, you will all be are affected by inflation, but the city is infected. It's also affected by inflation. All the minerals, I mean, all the stuff that we need to run the city and that we purchase is going to be rough this year too. And so that's my big concerns about this. I mean, we have to also operate as a city, and my best benefit too, I think some of the monies need to be put toward things that affect our whole community that needs to be looked at. Sure. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. And so it's a really hard decision. It's a really hard question. It puts us in a very, very bad and awkward position. People have supported me and I want to support them. And the reality is that we have to look out for the entire community, 100%. So it's not as if we could say 10 homes or 50 homes, we could waive the fees. If we waive the fee for one person, we literally have to waive the fee for every single person in this city, whether it's earthquake related or not. If we waive, you can't prove when the inspectors, listen, I walked around and I know I'm gonna take heat for this and it's what it is, but the inspectors came to my house, they green tagged it. The SBA person came to my house and they looked at it and they said, well, you can, we will give you this much. And later I found a crack in my foundation that no one knew about because it's on the inside. There are things that we have to do, but my rental, I own a rental here in Rio Dell. I had to pay the permit fee. I'm not asking the city to reimburse me. I'm not asking the city to waive it. I am on a fixed income. I am personally on a fixed income. It matters to me. Dollars matter to me. Debt matters to me. I don't want to screw anyone over, but it is our duty to look out for the entire community. And that is our duty. When we talk about Director Caldwell, yes, it might be his salary, but he is not a full-time employee. But since that earthquake, he has worked 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, and he has been having to get paid more than he normally would because he is not a full-time employee. Fees have to be paid for the state. We don't want to, nobody wants to pay the state, but we have to pay those things. We have to pay for plan checks. We have to pay for engineers. All of these things they're out of our control. The city is not the villain here. The city is doing everything the city can do. We are trying everything that we can try. We are trying to be imaginative. We are trying to think out of the box. And we are hurting just like everyone else. And we are affected just like everyone else. And yet we still have to pay like everyone else. We don't get a dime for sitting up here. We don't get one single penny for being up here on the city council. We are not getting paid and just lining our pockets with money. We are doing what we do because we love this community and because we want what's best for this community, and we are trying it. And so that's what we're faced with is, can we take away from everyone to help some? it doesn't matter how much. What matters is what we're saying, what is being asked of us is to take from everyone in this community to subsidize in this community. Everyone pays taxes, everyone pays permit fees, all of these things go into the pot. This isn't like just a few people pay. Everyone has to pay. I had to pay permit fees for my rental. I had to pay permit fees for my home. I had to pay I had to get a loan. I didn't have the money to fix my rental, to fix the porch that came down, to fix the toilet that broke, to fix the cracks that were in the ceiling. I literally did not have the money to do that. I had to take a loan out to do that, and which I have to pay back, which there is now a lien on my rental because I didn't have the money in the bank to say, I can pay this back anytime. So all of these things affect all of us. And so it isn't an easy, it is in no way easy. And just, talking about waiving fees is also talking about increasing the weight that the city has to bear. We have 75% we think is going to be reimbursed, 25% did not. That's $25 to $26 million that we don't know we can recover. We cannot say to the city, we will waive things and then cross our fingers and hope the wastewater system gets fixed, and cross our fingers and hope we have enough money to cover the cost of these things. Everyone here can reach out to the Humboldt Area Foundation. There is a fund where you can reach out and say, this is my situation. This is what happened to me in the earthquake. Can I get funds to waive to cover those permit fees? That's out there. We have done everything that we can, reaching out to other organizations, reaching out to philanthropists, saying, please help us, because the federal government will not help us. I personally reached out to Congressman Jared Huffman and asked him to come here and talk about what we can do to change the law. Not clearly for this moment, but in the future, because it will happen again. And what I can say is, please reach out to your congressmen and your senators. I know it sounds crazy, but that's what we can do. That's the thing that we can do to help ourselves and to help each other. And that's what I have done, is I've tried to reach out to my congressmen, my senators. I've reached out to the League of California Cities and said, we need to come together to somehow try and fix this problem, this inequity that the federal government is allowing to happen. The state can't cover it. The federal government, way back when I moved here, my neighbor, they both passed away, the Prima Fiores, they said, you don't need earthquake insurance because FEMA will cover it. And until 2019, apparently FEMA would cover it, but the law changed. And when the law changed, everything changed. They didn't tell us the law changed. We didn't know the law changed, so people maybe didn't get earthquake insurance or couldn't afford earthquake insurance. But what we have to do is reach out to our representatives, our federal government, talk about, representation, and try and get something changed so that when this kind of thing happens, the federal government will say, just because you're small, just because you're rural, just because you don't reach, you can level Humboldt County and wouldn't reach $65 million. We are still important. We still matter. You need to still see us. And those are the things that we can do to help ourselves, to help our neighbors. And I understand that this is just a bad situation. And I cannot tell you how clearly I understand, but I do. And there are people that have green tags. Councilmember Wilson talked about red tags, yellow tags, green tags. There's a green tag on my rental with the porch laying on the ground. There's a green tag on my house with a crack on the interior foundation. I still had to deal with that. I still had to get permits. I still paid for my permit. As I said, I'm not paid for here. I am on a fixed income, but that does not matter. What mattered was my property was important to me. My renter's property was important to me. And I did what I had to do. And what that was to reach out and try and get a loan, and which is what I did. Everyone can't do that. I understand that. But I also believe that we have to look at the entire city. We as the council, we have a fiduciary responsibility to 100% of the city of Rio Dell, every single citizen of Rio Dell. We are not asking, we would have to pretty much put it on the ballot. Are you willing for your dollars to go to fix something else? Because we have done what we can do. We are doing what we can do. We are trying as hard as we can try. And as negative response as I know that I am going to receive for what I'm saying, it is what I believe. It is uncomfortable, it is awkward, it is sad and depressing. But it is what I believe is right for everyone in the city to do what I feel like I just have to do what I have to do. And I understand people might feel like they can't afford it and they have to leave, or people feel like they can't afford it and they just have to fix what they have to fix. And that's a true statement. You do what we all will do, what we have to do to get to the next step, to move on. We will all do what we have to do. When we go to sell our home, if there's no permit, that might become an issue. If you want to leave and you want to sell your home, that actually might become an issue that you want to think about. And so at this point, I am not in favor of waiving the fee. I want to waive the fee, but I don't find for myself that that's the ethical choice for me to make. And so I think I have gone on long enough. You can reach out to the Humboldt Area Foundation and ask them to help with the fees. But at this point, I cannot support this. And I feel bad. I'm sorry to all citizens that feel like I'm letting you down, because that is the absolute last thing I want to do.
Are they gonna answer their phones?
Yeah, that's not us either.
That is not, so the response has gone away from the city and it is now with this response group. And so your phones, but I'm gonna stop now.
I'm gonna say one more thing. I know I'm probably not supposed to, but I want everybody to know that when this first happened, and when the response was the responsibility of the city, it was the majority of this council. Every single day for weeks, in the pouring rain, the blowing wind, our own houses, mine flooded. I still can't get the smell out because I was out trying to help you. I can't tell you how many 50-pound cases of water bottles I lift, how many hot meals we delivered, everything else. What was that, Cindy?
I said everyone pitched.
So did we. Please remember.
My point is.
I know. We have been putting ourselves in your position for a long time. Put yourself. We spend a lot of time trying to put ourselves in your position. We would really appreciate it if you would spend a tiny amount of time putting yourselves in our position. This is not fun. This is not easy. We don't like it. I would love a standing ovation and applause, but that's okay, because I do what I know is right, even when the right thing is not the easy thing. And that's my job. And I'll stop. I'm ready.
Now we'll open up to public comment. Please come up, limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please state your name and your address.
Hi, Cindy Treadwell, 548 Pacific Avenue. I agree about the personal responsibility with situations, with the earthquake damage that unfortunately a lot of the community members have incurred. My thoughts were mostly for the city to gain revenue off of those. Anything which I wasn't really understanding, the things that Karen had discussed, the additional fees to the state or the county for the review of the plans. But what Frank was stating, like, let's get some real numbers and then maybe make it a percent of the extra costs, not Kevin's, because he is an employed person, with the city already, but anything above that, I would feel was a reasonable charge for the permits. But I don't see how I don't believe the city should gain from or profit from the permit process in a natural disaster. I don't agree with that. The majority of these people pay property taxes. They add to the general fund. And this is, we're already paying Kevin's salary, right? So anything above that, I think would be more reasonable. And so, thank you. And I know all of you have helped.
Thank you.
I think our whole community has.
Absolutely.
During this. And I know we're all trying. And I don't want to take away from other people, but to profit off of it, I have an objection.
Well, it's hard for us to say the city is profiting off of fees.
I would like
to get into that back.
No, but as Karen, you could tell me, so far you have from January to now of the permits in which you said 88% are. Yeah, so is there do you have an idea of how much outsourced cost those were?
I don't have that written down.
But we need that, and that's what Frank seemed to be wanting to have before, we really know what, to make a decision too. But yeah, just to have, what is it really costing the city? And if it's just those above the fees, then maybe make it a percent, lower it. That's it.
Thank you, Cindy.
My name is Gail McKnight, and I live here in Rio Dell. I also was one of the original CSD board members for Scotia, and I know all about crazy fees that you guys have to pay and cover and all of that. I have never been for permit fees for replacing a water heater in your house. Can you tell me how much your fee is for replacing a water heater?
Around $80.
Okay,
Possibly $80.
that's a little less than Fortuna. I can tell you of seniors, citizens who were absolutely in tears because it took every last penny they had to buy a new water heater for the house. And then they get told, oh, you have to pay $120 just to replace your water heater. They don't come and replace it for you. You just have to pay the city that money. And it's things like that that really hit the people after the earthquakes. They knew on top of having to buy things to replace or fix what they had, they were going to have to pay these permit fees. And some of them just could not afford it. And I know a lot that went ahead and did their own fixing of their homes. You had to have somewhere to live. Did anyone check in? What I was hoping to hear tonight when I came was that you guys checked with the list of the other cities that were in disaster areas, that they waived their permit fees.
We did.
You did check with them, and where did they get the money from?
Can I speak? The San Bernardino, City of San Bernardino has, is this a yearly budget?
Yes.
1.12 billion. And way not what the budget of Rio Dell. Riverside County, which is a county, not a city, I want to make that clear, 7.6 billion. Ventura County, not
Okay,
city.
but that's not answering my question. That's
Okay, check it out.
where the money came from.
Yep, we have one that came from other foundations, right? The only city on here that is comparable to the city of Rio Dell, the North Valley Foundation compensated Butte County.
It doesn't have to be comparable. I'm just asking where
Okay,
this fund
It came from somebody, it came from another nonprofit that came in, which we have definitely
Okay.
investigated.
But what I'm saying is the cities went out and got that money.
Which we
That's what we're telling you.
That's what we're
Humboldt Area
trying to do.
Foundation, that's what we're saying.
You're telling us, are you willing to be behind us in
We are.
asking area
That's
foundation?
how we got to Humboldt Area Foundation.
Your timer's going.
What do I do?
I made sure
That means your 3 minutes is up, are up.
Okay,
But I am just telling you that that is actually how Humboldt Area Foundation is associated. The city did reach out. The city has reached out and
Okay.
continue to reach out. And we are continually looking for funds to put into the pot to help the citizens of Rio Dell.
hey,
That's,
that was not stated. You know, nobody's saying you guys are lining your pockets. I'd have to say the architect probably is.
but I just have to stop you because more people have to speak. I apologize.
Sharon Wolf, 3 Painter Street. And correct me if I'm wrong, but for the Humboldt Area Foundation, individuals can't go to them to ask for assistance. It needs to be a community-based organization or the city that would then receive the grant money for it. And the city has asked for Humboldt Area Foundation, and they're terrific, they're great funders, they do a lot of good work. And that money is being utilized, it sounds like, to offer assistance to the folks that have not yet gotten the assistance they qualify for low to moderate income or low to extremely low income through the disaster case management program, is what it sounded like we're saying, which is a real shame because that service needs to be up and these folks need to be helped, but they do have dedicated funding. The low to extremely low has a set aside pot of money, CDBG plus possibly the county money, but there's a specific set aside of funds for those. They may not be getting out the door yet because we need to hire case managers, but there is that money that is set aside specifically for that population. So that would not need to be coming out of what the Humboldt Area Foundation is dedicated to Rio Dell. But if, you know, folks might feel even slightly a little bit better if the city was willing to at least ask Humboldt Area Foundation, could we possibly look further into utilizing these funds for this specific purpose and frame it however you want, maybe moderate income and below, or something along those lines, so that it's not everybody. I don't know that we have multimillionaires in Rio Dell, but we might. And so they can pay for it themselves. But something, anything, would at least be a little bit better. And it may not be possible. I looked through that financial audit report. I know what's happening to the general fund and the cannabis tax revenues, and the money isn't there. And I've worked for government for long enough to know just how really screwed that is. But, you know, everybody's in the same boat. And when we are coming in to pay the permit fees for the city, not that I have to tell anyone here, but just to reiterate, that's loan money. We're paying interest on that coming in to pay that fee. So, you know, any nickel off of that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, Felicity Turcott, 211 Bellevue. I'm a recent Rio Dell citizen. I moved here 2.5 years ago. I did not know that I would be hit with a quite extreme case early on in my living here and in my home ownership. This is my first home. I do own it. And I was yellow taxed twice for the 2 major earthquakes that we endured. I do not have the luxury of having a rental house. I have one house. I am on a single income. I'm struggling to pay my bills. So, excuse me for saying this, but it's a little bit of a slap in the face for us who don't qualify for low income, because I make $40,000 to $50,000 a year. But for you to say, yes, you're on a fixed income because you're of a certain age, but to you to then say that you're struggling because you have a rental house, that's a luxury to have that rental house that you have to fix. That's a privilege, that you are coming from a privileged situation to talk to other people who don't have that privilege. And it does feel wrong for me. I did not have earthquake insurance. I can't afford $160 extra a month for earthquake insurance. No one can. So my house, $20,000 for the repairs, plus a plumber quoted me $6,000, and for the plumbing work that had to be done. And like, council member.
Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Hi, my name is Roberta Woolwind, and I live at 260 First Avenue. I came in here with a completely different mindset. At this point, I think we all know where we are. We're not getting any help. Nothing's going to be waived. And unfortunately, there's nothing that as an individual we can do about it. We own our homes. We've worked hard to own our homes. If these are not permits that we're gonna put a spa in, we're gonna add a big day room, that's not happening. We're just trying to fix our homes. But what I hear from the city, and I understand that there are lots of fees that, as an individual, I don't understand all of that. However, I do understand one thing. As a community, we need to figure out why we didn't get FEMA here. It's based on a huge number of people. We had floods in Southern California, and they live in multi-million-dollar homes. Of course, they were just instantly made whole. Am I not wrong? Okay, so we're all on the same page. What we need to do now is 2020 earthquake is coming on. Well, it was 2021 and 2022. I'm sorry. They are gone. They're done. Our homes are damaged. We're not going to have a cavalry come in and fix it. But we've all acknowledged this is going to happen again. So now it's our mission to get in front of the next one. And what we need to do is look at how FEMA is structured. We're a small community. These homes are at tops $250,000 to $300,000. We're not living in $1 million mansions. So of course, These funds are not made available to us. We are just, well, we're poor folk. Let's be honest. So in order for this not to happen to a city of like ourselves or another city that is per capita as we are, we need to figure out how to change that FEMA to get that FEMA money. How many cities in Humboldt County, how many of them really had the damage that Rio Dell had?
No.
So we need to ask ourselves, what do we do going forward? Because looking behind us in the rearview mirror, I have a house off the foundation. It's not completely off the foundation. I'm blessed. Honestly, it's only yellow tagged. But nonetheless, I still have an issue. What it's going to cost to fix it, I don't know. But I do think that going forward, we need to figure out how to get a per capita FEMA set everywhere in this nation, not just here in California, but everywhere. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else?
Chelsea Orr, 84 Edwards. I just wanted to ask you guys, you said that contact the Humboldt Area Foundation, but then she said that we can't contact them as individuals. And so I just wanted to clarify that. And I was in contact with Humboldt County because we were on a list because we're yellow tagged, but it doesn't sound like even the red tag houses, their loan has been dispersed. And they said like, oh, yellow tags, we're not even considering for a while. And so while we're waiting for that, is there any recommendations or avenues that we can try to take to get money for repairs that need to be done? That's it. Thank you.
So to that, the disaster case management services, which I agree is has had a rough start, is going to be the single source to call. This is not a city organization. It is run by volunteer and paid staff through funds made available from the county and also the Humboldt Area Foundation. So there is one number, which is 707-382-5890. And what I want to encourage the public to do is to be patient as this gets set up and rolling forward. But there is a limited pot of funding available. And so in our discussions with the Humboldt Area Foundation, their priority is to prioritize the low to very low income individuals. And so there's not going to be a lot of money available for middle to upper income earners. And this is the really frustrating part. And I totally understand because we don't have FEMA here to do the individual and household assistance. The county itself has put up $1 million and some $400,000 of that was spent doing the hotel voucher program, which normally FEMA would be picking up the entire tab for that. And so this has been really your local agencies, your local nonprofits from the county to the city are the ones here doing this. We do receive a lot of support from Cal OES, but this is the real difficult situation is that there's limited funds. The city does not control the prioritization of those funds. And those are controlled by third-party organizations through the disaster case management system, through the Eel River Long-Term Recovery Group. And that's really the best bet right now to receive that level of assistance. And I think the mayor did make a good point earlier to make sure that folks do contact their elected officials, especially at the federal level, of congressmen, senators, and so on, because this is a problem. It is a nationwide problem. It's particularly acute in California, and it's not fair. It's not equitable to this community. And I think what we're experiencing here is just a lot of pain and grief and additional unnecessary trauma. So again, the number is 707-382-5890. If you're able to leave a message, please do. And try to be patient with it, because we're essentially having to recreate the wheel out of nothing, with very limited resources that are going to be stretched very, very thin. Thank you.
And I just real quick wanted to say that I should have said the long-term disaster recovery and rather than Malaria Foundation.
Thank you. I'm Cindy Fisher, 210 Bellevue Avenue. I have a couple things. One, I want to address Kevin being an employee of the city. All this work isn't going to come in all at once. His permits are going to come in a little at a time. There's no reason that you should have to hire another person. Right? There's only, how many houses are red and yellow tagged? I mean, why are we thinking that there's going to be all of a sudden all these permits come in? Maybe half of them have already come in.
Yeah, I don't know, but the city clerk knows better than that.
It's hard to say. I mean, Kevin estimated the number of permits that we've issued to date, which is around 120, will probably double or triple. That's his estimate. We don't know that.
Okay, well, we have no new building because there's no PG&E hookup, so he won't be dealing with anything like that.
We do have for residential. We have hookups for residential.
It isn't his only job. Inspecting for earthquake damage is just, it just isn't the only thing he has to do. He has to do, just a myriad of other tasks that have nothing to do with earthquake.
I just see a lot of it trickling in. I don't see it all coming in and like a big clump. He should have time to disperse his work. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is all the help is for low-income people and really low-income people. So the hardest hit people that are red and yellow tag, that are working people, are getting no help. And so it just feels like you guys are right on board with doing the same thing to us. That's what I.
And we are you.
We are
right. We are you.
We are
we are the same middle class. We're getting the same hit as everyone else. That's what I think we're trying to explain to you. That it's not like you are experiencing this. We are all experiencing it. That's all I'm saying. And I know I'm 63. When I was 40, did not have a rental. When I was 30, didn't even have my own home. So it's not a slap in the face. It's just age, I guess.
It is a slap in the face.
But it is not.
We pay taxes.
Because we pay the same taxes. That's the point.
And we got slapped in the face.
We got slapped in the face too. That's why I said we need to. That's why I reached out to Congressman Jared Huffman. That's why I reached out to the senator, because I see the inequity. I see how wrong it is, and I'm doing everything I can do to right that inequity, to fight that with the federal government.
And I'm sorry, I do have one quick question, if I may. How much time do we have to repair our homes? Is there a time limit?
No.
As long as you're working hours.
Okay. Supervisor Michelle Bushnell, who was very, very, very helpful in this whole disaster, and we appreciate everything you've done.
My stomach hurts. I'm so glad you guys are up there today. I want to address the council as well as the community. So there are lots of things to understand, and they're very difficult. Planning departments can't profit, period. And it is done on a fiscal year. So they have to fiscally balance the budget. Most of them go in red. So they don't profit. They hardly ever even break even. It's actually against the law for them to profit. So when you say you don't want them to profit off your permits, they can't. It's illegal. The state the permits that they have to from the money to the state. So, I would happily reach out to Senator McGuire and Jim Wood. That's who can relieve those more than they can. They can't do that. I can't do that. I would do that as well. I met with Congressman Huffman when he was here as well. And when your council told you that the entirety of Humboldt County could be leveled and there would be no FEMA, that's a true story. Earthquakes that have happened in in Burnville have been devastating, and we still haven't reached those FEMA numbers. And so it's very inequitable, and it is partly to the value of homes in other areas. It's also partly to the infrastructure in the cities. The city infrastructure costs 10 times the amount of the infrastructure here. And so when you can reach a $64 million number in the city very quickly, just with infrastructure on the cities, the sewer, water, and so forth in the cities. And so it doesn't make you guys feel any better, but it is why it happens easier in the bigger cities. You can't apply the Humboldt Area Foundation on your own. You have to apply those nonprofits. Single people cannot do that. It has to come through a source, like the county, Rio Dell, some other source. The people that were here helping? Sorry.
So there's Habitat for Humanity. Yes. There is the Hope Crisis Network this year. In order to fund their operations, that money essentially comes from the money that the county has made available, and then but primarily from the philanthropic donations that have come from outside of, most of it has come actually from outside of Humboldt County.
Those are the private donations that went to Humboldt Area Foundation. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but the monies, to get something from Humboldt Area Foundation, they're a nonprofit. You have to have a group that will sponsor that, and you have to pay you guys. It's the same reason the Humboldt County couldn't give the $1 million and write checks to individually, and that's why it's taking so long, is because we had to find a source. I'm very supportive that my board gave the $1 million to Rio Dell, otherwise there would be zero money for Rio Dell. And we're in a huge budget crisis, but it was very important that we help you guys, because you guys are our citizens as well, even though we don't control this area. I'm happy to try to help with any of the permits that I can.
Question. So, other than what we have to pay out for the permits, the remainder of that permit fee, where does that go?
Processing.
To the general fund?
Well, you have to, like they had said.
Or do they keep it? We're right at a deficit every year, what you said, 38, 28.
You don't get services, you don't get a permit, and that's all it costs is a permit. It doesn't happen that way. Someone has to make that permit. Somebody has to enter it in the computer.
You mean a city employee?
Yes.
And that's already.
So that is at the end of if you ask for a budget for a fiscal year and you see what the planning department is, that is what they have, what it takes to run the planning department. And that's what for the entire year. They cannot profit from that in any way. But if anybody wants to email me, call me, walk out the door with me, I'm happy to try to help with any of the permits. The state permitting is McGuire and Wood. That is where we can get some maybe some relief from them. Those are the permit fees that these folks have to front. That means if they were to waive those fees for you guys, they're going to write a check out of their general fund to the state. Those are the biggest amounts of the fees.
If you brought the percent down, you did on a percent.
It doesn't work that way for the state. They have a
fees would be to the state.
The state charges.
And then with the city charges.
I don't know.
That's what I mean.
I don't know, but I know that it costs money. And I don't want to take up their time because I'm just a commoner just saying. What I'd like to say is I'm happy to try to help as well with the state. But your board has done really a great job. They have worked with zero. in this earthquake, and I know it's painful. I have a home in Rio Dell as well that is trashed, and I don't have any help either. And so it's not, you know, it's been a really tough winter. Financially, it's not a great right now. Your board has tried though, and your city, Kyle, all of them. And I know it's very exciting, and all you want to do is fix your homes. I'm happy to try to help with them and have ideas, but they do this for free, and they're trying. And I know it's hard, and I know if you look at their budget, there's no money there. And I'm sorry if you guys are all upset, I really am. But I am really happy to try to help with your council.
Thank you, Supervisor Bushnell. Are there any more comments from the public? Are there any hands raised? Any emails? Okay, then I'm gonna, take a 5-minute break.
Recording stopped.
Stop.
Recording in progress.
So we are now back in session.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to vote on this issue.
We have a motion, is there a second? I'll second. We have a motion and a second, please vote.
Everything's reversed.
Can I call for the motion when we're actually voting?
Oh, yeah.
I'm making a motion to vote on, waiving the fees.
Not not within the fees.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to vote to not waive the permit fees. And to use
You're making a motion to accept the.
the staff recommendation. All right,
Is there a second?
Julie's the second.
We have a second. Motion carries 3.
Oh, I meant, to accept it.
I'm sorry.
No, that's right.
That was right.
The motion says to waive the fees. So
The motion was to accept staff's recommendation,
Yes, and that.
which is to not waive.
Not waive the
That's
fees.
right. Yes, so I didn't know that case. Right, yes.
All right.
So the motion carries 3-2. Now we move on to discussion and possible direction regarding Elm Street water, page 163 in our packets.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. So on April 18th, 2023, which was the council's last meeting, a member of the public requested repairs to the Elm Street water line. And so at the request of Mayor Garnes, this item has been agendized for the council to consider and provide a direction on this matter. However, I will have an update for the council. This water line was scheduled to be part of the water capital improvement plan, which was to begin construction in 2024. So that's 100% grant funded. However, staff did review the water line condition. It is currently in the process of failing. It's not quite clear if it's earthquake related or not. And so staff has determined that it is in failure and in need of emergency repair. We have been in contact with a local contractor to provide a quote and so that we can get the work conducted. So under the Rio Dell Municipal Code, the city manager can make that determination. Unfortunately, there's just multiple failures and the situation is, potentially something that we could have to respond to in 5 minutes. And most likely will result in total failure of the line. So we are anticipating replacement work on that to begin at the earliest availability of the contractor. It is unlikely that we will be able to include this in the water CIP, the grant funds, just because the whole process to get a written grant agreement is extremely lengthy and problematic. And to, pull off one section is just really going to create an additional problem. But barring the inability for us to fund that through the grant or through the earthquake recovery funding, there is funding set aside in the reserve. That's been part of the rates, water rates to set aside for unanticipated events. So this would qualify as one. The other additionally potentially positive news is that once the repair is completed, the underground issues with the known underground issues with Elm Street infrastructure will have been fixed. So that in that particular case, there's not a drainage issue. There's, as far as I'm aware, there's not a sewer issue. And so that then rises up in terms of the ability to repave or resurface that particular street. So that's good news. And so if funding is available, which is another question mark, the council could direct staff to work on resurfacing of that short section of street. And so we do know that this year, while we weren't anticipating doing any street projects in the upcoming budget year, that the earthquake has obviously changed that. And so we will be engaging in solicitation and bid to have some earthquake-related road infrastructure repaired. So places like Aloha, Bellevue, Riverside Drive all need some work done, and that's a chance potentially when we have mobilized contractors to be able to attach a side bid on that particular project and thus reduce the cost. So unless there's any other questions, that's hopefully some good news for the evening.
Thank you. Just unclear, you're saying we're going to fix down, this proposal is to fix down through because it is bad.
Yeah, so it's reached a point where there is really no, the most efficient way to do it, to save ratepayer money would be to wait for the grant, but I think we have just flat out run out of time. So that particular section, it is a relatively short section. So the cost won't, I don't anticipate the cost being as high as the Birch Street, which did have earthquake related verifiably, damage. So it should come in underneath that $110,000 or $115,000 for Birch.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson, question.
I was gonna ask if he had an estimate on costs, and it sounds like he answered.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Ward?
No questions.
Councilmember Woodall? No. Mayor Pro Tem? No questions. Anyone in the public have any questions about on three? Any hands raised? Any emails? Is there a motion to? There's a motion.
Do you need a motion for that?
We don't need a motion for that, unless the council has additional direction to get some.
On to discussion and possible direction regarding resolution 1578.
Base rate sewer waiver for unoccupied red tax structures that were damaged as a result of the December earthquakes. And then on April 18th, the city council's at our last meeting, a member of the public expressed his belief that payments already made subsequent to the earthquake should get a refund and not a credit on the account. So at the request of Mayor Garnes, this item has been agendized for the council to consider and provide further direction on this matter. Attached is a copy of Resolution 1578. If the council so desires, we can play a tape of that particular meeting, but I will just say that at no time did staff state that it was a cash refund, that it was a credit. But we can play back the tape, but in the interest of perhaps the stress of the evening, we may not need to go there. But with that, fundamentally, the question is, does the council want to amend create a new resolution to replace 1578 that allows for a cash refund as opposed to a credit? And if so, if the council so desires, we will return at our next regularly scheduled meeting with the updated resolution for the council's approval.
Thank you, City Manager. Okay. Councilmember Woodall, any questions? I'm fine with it as it stands. Thank you. Councilmember Orr?
I'll let it stand.
I'm fine with it.
Oh, it's 10.
Is there anyone from the public wish to make or comment?
Sure, we're still at 3 Painter Street. So I was at that meeting, the video is available at the riodelltimes.com, both the clip of last week's meeting, or the last meeting, and then the one previously that caused the confusion. And I can totally see where the confusion is coming from. The resolution appears, the language in it is building on the existing policy by the sounds of it, of waiving certain amounts of your water sewer fee if there's an excessive bill. You could come to the council, you can ask that they waive a certain percentage. And that's a credit against your account because you have a large fee for that. In the resolution language, it talks vaguely about what's going to happen. Nobody said you were going to get a refund. However, when Steve Saunders asked about it and said very clearly, so I'm going to be able to go down there and pick up a check for the amount I paid and give it to the people I'm staying with to pay for their utilities. Members of the council nodded their head in agreement. Nobody corrected that statement. That's where the confusion came from. I left that meeting believing you would get a refund for that amount of money. And that's what I told people. If you pay this fee, talk to them because the city says you'll get that money back. That's where the misunderstanding came from. So do what you're going to do. You don't have to change the resolution, but that is why he thought he would get a refund. He asked clearly about it. He wasn't correct and said, no, you're going to get a credit or anything else. This is where it comes from. And I understand waiving the fee would have to come out of the general fund and all the stuff we were just discussing with the waivers. But it sounds to me like it's about $50 a month for the portion of the waiver that we have for the people that are affected for it. So it is a very small piece of funding in comparison to permit fees. And if there's any way, I would really encourage the council to find some way, if you can, to possibly do that and refund the amount, give it back to the people that have already paid that fee. They're just getting nailed. They're just getting slammed so bad already. It's not that much. It really isn't. But again, that's where the confusion came from. It could have easily been cleared up at that time so that there was no confusion, but it wasn't. So that's why it's back in front of you today.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a comment? Any hands raised? Any emails? Does anyone want to see the video? No, I don't want to. I did too. I already watched it. Yeah.
I think the video says,
Right.
well, I mean, I listened specifically the night of that, for that.
51. That's the exact spot, 4751. Everyone said credit. He did say refunds. But we did not, no, I didn't see where anyone responded, but no one responded and said they're right. They just kind of moved forward. So,
No, I didn't understand what you said.
I just said, at 4751 on the video, we all said credit. And we didn't say anything. Staff said credit. We agreed with credit. We agreed with the resolution. We accepted the resolution. And then Mr. Saunders did say, do I get a refund? And no one said anything. We just moved forward. We didn't say, yes, you'll get a credit. Anywhere I could see, a refund. So I say that it stands, the resolution is as it is, and I don't think that we are going back on our word or action. So is there a motion to accept, let me see where
So technically on this issue, the council just takes no action.
Okay. Now we are on to donation to the Rio Dell Fire Protection District for playground equipment at Fireman's Park, page 167 in our packet. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. So on our last meeting, April 18th, the city council's regularly scheduled meeting, Mr. Zach Schaefer, representing Rio Dell Fire Department, requested financial support from the city for new playground equipment. And again, at the request of Mayor Garnes, this item has been agendized for the council to consider and provide direction on this matter. Mr. Schaefer did clarify his request, to be a grant match of 50% of, equipment, and that's on page 168 of your packet. The total cost of the equipment is a little over $5,000. And so Mr. Schaefer's request would be for a little over $2,500 in order to secure additional funding for the playground equipment. So funds are not currently set aside in the budget for the playground equipment. However, the city council's budget unit is under budget, and because this is a public benefit available and free to any user of the park, the council can direct staff to go ahead and help assist with the fire department's grant match.
Councilmember Wilson,
I think it's a great idea.
Councilmember Woodall,
Yes.
Councilmember Orr,
You know, it's gut-wrenching to tell people that they can't have a fee waive to fix their homes, but we're gonna buy swing set equipment, but I think it's good. So, yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Councilmember Warren, I'm glad you said that because I did. I just want to make it really, really clear that this is coming from a fund that is for the city council that we don't spend it on. So it's not coming from a general fund at all. It has nothing to do with the fund that would have to do with the building fee waivers. I realize that that is confusing and it's tough to have these back to back. And then it doesn't look good. So I'm just making it clear. This has nothing to do with the general fund. It's coming from the council fund that is over budget anyway, under budget. So we have the extra money. That means I don't get new business cards, and that's all that means. So that's totally fine. And it does benefit the entire town, all of it. So that's why I'm going to say yes.
Okay. Thank you, then. Okay. And, I agree with that, yeah. So are there any public comments?
Yeah, so this is being added on to the equipment.
Can you say your name and?
Oh, my name is Zach Schaefer. I live on Ash Street and represent the fire department.
It's good.
So this is to get the toddler swing, which is getting added on to the grant funding that we already got, which is replacing the main swing set and getting a tire swing. And we're also getting a small little mini excavator. But so this is matching the fire department commissioners and to get the toddler swing. Because if we wait, it'll be an additional $1,500 in shipping just to get this. So we're getting added it on to the previous order. So.
Thanks, Zach.
Thanks, Zach. Thank you.
Jonathan Rudd here. Yeah, I agree with you, Robert. You know, I'm too poor to qualify for a loan. So they said they got to pay it back. So this is kind of rough at the same time to have this going on, but at the same time, you know, we're still gonna volunteer to install this for free. So thanks for the support of the council, and it's nice, it sucks to have to separate them on the same time, but yeah, I'm supportive of it, obviously.
Thank you. Are there any hands raised? Anyone else? Are there any hands raised? Any emails? So this is another direction to staff. We got it, so. There's no vote. Right.
If you want to formalize it, yeah, actually, why don't we formalize it if we get a motion? My apologies, sorry.
Is there a motion?
I second.
A motion in the second. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Really good, I love you. We will move on to ordinances and special resolutions. Second reading by title only and adoption of ordinance number 398/2023, amending chapter 10.05, use of streets for storage of vehicles prohibited, section 10.05.530 of the Rio Dell Municipal Code. Page 172 of our packets.
Mayor, thank you, Mayor, Garza, members of the council. So unfortunately, Kevin Caldwell, our Community Development Director, who is the sponsor of this item, is ill and is unable to attend the meeting. Tonight, my recommendation would be that we take any public comment on it that we have, and then continue the item to the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Any public comments? Any hands raised? Emails, then we will continue this to the meeting of May 16th. 16th. And now we will, move on to council communications and reports. Mayor Pro Tem.
I completely forgot about council communication. Okay. I wrote it down. Okay, I went to a REDEC meeting and that was on April 24th. What the agenda said was that we were going to be hearing from the executive director of the Humboldt County Growers Alliance on the state of the Humboldt County's cannabis industry. What we actually heard was a summation of an article that I'll refer you guys to, the Las Post Outpost, published April 20th. Conveniently. We heard from the proponents of the county's cannabis reform initiative. It was interesting. That was not what was supposed to be on the agenda, but it is what happened. I think we're calling back the other side next meeting so we can at least hear both sides before we weigh in. So I'm not expressing an opinion on that right now. But I would say keep an eye on that story because it does look like it's heating up. I attended a community emergency response team training weekend, and I'm very, very excited to have gained that knowledge. And I believe that having a CERT training team or a CERT team down here in Rio Dell, Scotia, sure makes me feel just a little bit more prepared and a little bit safer and gives well-meaning citizens something they can do to help, which I think is really, really important because I learned during the earthquakes, you can't just walk in off the street and say, hey, let me help you out. They don't know who you are. The first responders don't know who you are. So it's nice to have that training and, have the backing of an actual organization. So thank you to the Rio Dell Police Department for, getting the grant that sponsored that training. I look forward to having an actual official team. Last thing, Chamber of Commerce meeting this Friday at noon. I think we're in Nick's office if anybody's interested. That's it for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Woodall?
Okay. Nothing I do about not have an HTA meeting tomorrow early.
Okay.
So, and it's May what? 19th. May 19th. And that may not be our next meeting, maybe before that for the beautification.
Oh, yes, you're right.
Walkability.
Yes.
Is that good what time, Karen?
9 a.m.
9 a.m.
Councilmember Orr?
I went to the Humboldt County Association of Governments meeting this past Thursday. They had a presentation on the Greater Redwood or the Great Redwood Trail, and the economic impact it can have on the cities alongside that trail. And really hoping that this makes some progress because it deals with a lot of unused old track along the opposite side of the river, has a potential to bring a lot of revenue into Rio Dell if we know when to jump, when they say jump, I guess. Some hurdles to go through with landowners and some previous discrepancies between what it was going to be and what it is going to be now. But other than that, it was a really good meeting. And I know I didn't make any friends here tonight, but please do not misconstrue my comment about lining pockets with just trying to figure out where all the money goes. Better explanation of that, I guess. That was it.
Thank you. Councilmember Wilson?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, not to be particularly quirky, but was that a different, I'm sorry, that's not part of it. Was the presentation you had different from what was agenda?
At REDEC?
Yeah.
It was very vague what was agenda. I said, you said the state of the cannabis industry, but it was only about this one thing and they came in really hard. And I felt a little bad for Natalie Arroyo, because she was not ready for that to be the presentation, and then she was scrambling. And yeah, it was interesting.
Okay, I just on that.
Yeah.
Other than that, I had a VDAC, I had a RCEA meeting, which, RCEA actually turned 20 years old as an organization, like the QCA, just somewhere in the near time, this year. And then, I had HWMA, did a special budget meeting, and we're going back for another special meeting with HWMA. We're trying to work out some of the stuff that, Mr. Knox said, that we're working on that 1383 thing and how they're gonna budget that. And the money, it was a public meeting, so what I can say was, the fees are gonna go up for all of your garbage.
Yeah.
For all your individual, franchise dealers, because they all have separate, contracts with Rio Dell and your Rico or whatever. And, but the cost, not just for 1383, which will be in there additionally beyond what's going up for tipping fees, is garbage is getting expensive like everything else, their wages and the fees to get this. So I think I mentioned last time that there's hand trucks, 365 days a year, the big chip trailers, we say, 10 of those go out of Humboldt County every day to Oregon to take this, the garbage that's going up there. You know, 1383 is supposed to eventually work into getting a compost that we would actually bring the compost in and turn it into compost and probably possibly sell it, if that works for people that are getting their organic waste. So anyway, your bill was probably going to be about $3 to $5 somewhere in the plus. So you're right there.
Thank you. I also attended the CERT training, which is Community Emergency Response Training. Our team, really the T stands for. We went to that training. A number of us here did, and it was training that is going to help the community, and hopefully when things go sideways again, we will be able to respond, help the first responders, help the fire department, help the police department. And that's what it's all about, is just being a part of the team and doing what we can to help each other. It was a rough meeting. It was a long meeting. I got a little edgy and probably was a little clearly offensive to some, and I feel really, really bad about that, and I will feel bad about that for a while, but really, the council really is just trying to do what's good for the entire community. That is what we're here for, and that's what we are honestly trying to do. And so with that, I will close the meeting, and we will come back together on May 16th.
Michelle.